last week, we got copies of Doom like barely before. I guess we didn't even get them before it came out. It
came out on release day. I mean, we actually got our copies on release day, right?
We got it a few hours early because Australia technically got it on release day, which is in the past.
The past? Future? Depends which way you're looking at it, I guess. But it sort of churned up this whole discussion again about, red flags start to get waved whenever a game comes out and a big publisher decides to hold back review copies. There's a bunch of people tweeting about it over the weekend. We were having a big chat about it. Kevin Van Orde was tweeting about it, saying that like in his professional experience, there was never really any correlation between it. Peter, what do you think? You've been reviewing games for a long, long time. You've had early access to games. You've probably been at a couple of review events, I'm guessing as well. And you've had games not turn up and had to review them as quickly as you can. Is there any sort of correlation between that? Do you ever sort of see red flags waving whenever publishers decide to not give us early access to stuff?
It certainly makes you wonder, but I would be lying if I said that there is a definite correlation that I've noticed.
Right.
Sure, there are times when games are not good, and a publisher knows that because I don't know if anyone else out there knows that, but they hire people to review games before they send out copies for reviews. They're known as internal mock reviews.
And a large part of mock reviews is to sort of allocate things like marketing budgets and stuff like that, isn't it?
Sure. Yeah. To understand like, okay, what are we going to face? How do we plan accordingly to match that? So yeah, I'm certain there are instances when the game did not show up on time because they knew it was going to be a poor experience. I think they just I was going to make a Friday the 13th joke. I really don't know why we didn't get Doom before the release day. But I'm not that bothered. Like as someone whose job it is to review the game, yeah, it's like a pain in my butt. But I don't really care because Doom ended up being really, really good. And I don't know why they would have been nervous about it. Maybe because the multiplayer isn't so hot.
Snap map and the multiplayer, maybe they were worried about people putting out reviews without having experienced that stuff at a time.
Yeah, I don't know. But like Bethesda's been doing this for a while. Yeah. There's stuff you can do in Fallout that kind of falls into that camp, and not multiplayer, but just weird stuff, and we got that plenty of time.
Right.
But yeah, no, in my experience, I think it's a case by case basis. There's not like some conspiracy, especially between publishers and outlets. Like, we kind of just roll with whatever they're willing to give us, and in this case, oh well, we didn't get it early.
Let's talk about a couple of instances that have happened, because you said it is on a case-by-case basis. I mean, almost the opposite of what's happened with Doom is what's happened with Homefront, is that we actually did get that relatively early. We got that like some stage last week.
Yeah, we got a Wednesday, I believe. Yeah.
Which could have been a game that could have held off. I mean, the reviews aren't super hot at the moment.
Right, and that window of time is pretty typical for a lot of games. Even some really big games, which, kind of sucks. But yeah, I mean, who knows why they didn't hold that back, right? I mean, you wonder if they want people to buy the game on launch day to not be scared off by poor reviews, then they might hold it back. And I think that's why some people think that's the case. But it's evidence of the fact that that's maybe not the case all the time when we see a game like Homefront ship out.
I think a lot of the reason people have that expectation is because of what happens with film criticism and film releases.
Right.
So quite often with film releases, and this is much more due to quality. If the quality and they are anticipating bad reviews, they will not screen it to the press. Now, normally national press screenings for movies happen, the Monday or the Tuesday before the Friday release date.
Okay.
So enough time for that week's national newspapers and stuff to circulate out. Quite often, if a movie skips that press schedule, then the critics will have to go see it on Friday morning with the public.
Right.
So they miss. I mean, that's because for film, the Friday and Saturday or the opening weekend box office is the most critical period. If you can protect at least your Friday and Saturday night, then which is obviously not the case with games, which have a much bigger, obviously the first few weeks of release are very important. But for film studios, it's much more about protecting that Friday night, Saturday night box office. And so if they're worried that a film's going to receive negative criticism, they'll often not show it to the press so that they can at least get a good Friday night, maybe even a Saturday night before the bad word starts to spread around it. But as Pete says, I mean, it's really not the case. I mean, we see so many different examples from, a few years ago, Ubisoft with Unity, where the review embargo was 6 hours after the game had actually been released. And obviously that game had some technical issues. To examples like Doom, where again, I have no idea why. I mean, I don't even know if they said to us it was due to the online components, but obviously, I mean, that's that is an element. And when you do get games that have a large online component to them, that is often the case where they'll want to try them in the wild, which is obviously how we review games anyway. We won't put a game out that has a large online component until we've tested it in public environment anyway. So
yeah, it seems like it can happen, not as often as the film world, but it can happen. But it almost seems like the inverse of it happens as often, in that we just get late copies.
It's not as easy as you can say, no early reviews. Oh, the game's terrible.
Yeah,
it doesn't work like that.
Like a lot of people, did not like the new Star Fox.
Right.
That game showed up weeks ahead of time.
Yeah. What about Uncharted? Was the embargo for that?
I think we had just about over a week with the game, maybe a little bit less. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny how it works out. I wondered with Doom as well, was it something to do with the fact that they were releasing on a Friday, which is typical for the European market, but obviously not the case over here.
Well, they can send us digital codes, right? So we're not necessarily dealing with like market distribution in a physical sense.
I was thinking maybe they needed some like distance from Uncharted or something because they were landing in a sort of a weird midweek situation.
I see what you mean.
Yeah, that's possible.
It could have been totally logistical too.
Yeah.
And we would just never know.
Yeah. Maybe they just couldn't get them out on time. It's weird how this stuff works. Anyway, thanks for chatting about it, because it is an interesting thing, and especially like before I was sort of involved in the press, I think people wonder about this stuff a lot of the time, and they wonder what gears are sort of working in the background. And the reality, I think, when you come in and see it, is that actually there are so many gears working that it's not like there is some sort of like quid pro quo thing happening. It's just that sometimes people work within the limits and sometimes things fall out of the norm, and there's not necessarily any like correlation between the two of them.
Half the time, even the person I'm talking to about the game doesn't have any power or idea when they are getting the code.
Right, yeah.
And
that was definitely the case in the UK as well, actually, when we were getting games which were coming from external people, like third-party PR companies. Same stuff. All right, thank you both so much.